What is up, guys? Welcome back to Newsway. I'm sure most of you are excited because it's Friday, so you can look forward to the weekend. But a lot of stuff happened yesterday in the video game world, including a very interesting set of trademarks that went out. So we're going to get started with that today. So what happened was Nintendo filed 4 different trademarked images, and those trademarks were the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo 64 controllers, and then we have the Switch just as itself in black and white line art. And the reason they would do this is because, well, the line art can be used on several different types of logos. In fact, the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo ones seen here are present on top of the Nintendo Classic and the Super Nintendo Classic boxes. The Switch one can probably just be used in different marketing campaigns or even on accessories that come out. There's a couple different places they could use that logo, and the Nintendo 64 controller is kind of left up in the air, and it has had several people now speculating that maybe this is signaling their plans to release the Nintendo 64 Classic down the road in the future, who knows when. Now, I want to point out a lot of companies just file trademarks for stuff just to cover their bases. So just because they did file this trademark doesn't necessarily mean Nintendo 64 Classic is coming out. But it would be really cool if it did. And since they were really big about putting almost like a poster game up, if you will, like a poster child for their Super Nintendo Classic being Star Fox 2, I think if they could work something out with Microsoft, they could have, Microsoft and Rare, obviously, Microsoft owns Rare, and they have some kind of hold, Nintendo and Microsoft, on GoldenEye. That's why we have not seen a solid N64 version of 007 GoldenEye come out a few years back. We were very close to getting one on the Xbox 360 Live Arcade, but because apparently Nintendo and Microsoft could not come to some kind of agreement, it was just canceled. But there has been footage that you've seen probably online of this game in its not complete form, but man, is it close. I mean, they run through several levels, and they show off a really cool feature where you could switch between classic visuals and newer, updated with anti-aliasing and visuals that look great, really. And the problem here is just the trademark, the licensing, it's so muddied right now by so many different companies. Apparently even Activision is in on it. So it would have to be a lot of agreeing, probably profits being split all over the place for this to show up. And that's pretty much why we have not seen anything from that Nintendo 64 version of GoldenEye. But really, you could go back to Nintendo's library of games and you could easily come up with a list for the Nintendo 64 Classic. In fact, I invite you guys down in the comments to come up with your own favorite games that you would like to see on there. Most people are obviously going to say Mario 64, Star Fox, you have Paper Mario. I mean, the list goes on for a lot of people, and they could even maybe dig back up, Earthbound 64, the game that was almost released. They can even go into their, maybe their disk drive-based system that they almost released. They can even do something like Animal Force that became Animal Crossing and release that on there. There's a lot of stuff they can do to make it unique. But you guys have to keep in mind, there's also a chance that these trademarks could be something pointing towards Virtual Console instead, since those logos could definitely be part of a menu system for those games. I don't think anyone would really be mad about that, though. I think a lot of people want the Virtual Console. Everyone's begging for it on the Switch, and at this point, if that's what this trademark is for, that's fine. It just seems logical, obviously, because they've done a Nintendo Classic, a Super Nintendo Classic. Logic says Nintendo 64 Classic is next. Again, the Switch trademark, I think, is throwing a lot of people off. I think that's more for accessories or just any type of branding that they might just need a Switch logo for. That would fit the bill fine. But I'm curious what your thoughts are. Do you think Nintendo 64 Classic is on the way, or was this just trademarks for them covering their bases, or is this pointing towards Virtual Console? It's very interesting to me. I'd like to hear what kind of games you would like on a Nintendo 64 Classic, and if you even think it's going to show up. Oh, and a lot of people have been talking about Skyrim for the Switch, mostly because, well, a lot of people have been trying to figure out how it would perform on the Switch. Well, a couple videos came out, one from IGN and then one from Philip from the Spawncast. He put it on his channel, so check that out. I'll put a link in the description below, but it looks like it runs fine on the Switch. It actually runs really well at 30 frames per second in handheld mode for what they were testing. And overall, that's great, but it's also bad to an extent because that means that Skyrim is now going to be able to follow me around when I do get it on the Switch. I love Skyrim. Like I said before, the only reason that I had any kind of life when it came out was because I could leave it at home when I do things like go out or go to work or something. If it's going to be there, kind of follow me around if I want to take the Switch with me, I'm going to be in some trouble and I probably just won't get much done. Thursday also brought us a ton of financial information. If you're ever curious, MPD results tend to release like 2 to 3 weeks after the month ends, and then we start getting more information depending on what the PR agencies of the company want to share. But in this case, VentureBeat published all the different NPD results, so we know where the different games placed and how hardware has been selling compared to last year, which, by the way, it's up more than likely thanks to the Switch because Nintendo wasn't selling many Wii U's this time last year. So let's go over the list. Right away, number 1, Tekken 7. And that's actually surprising, I think, to a lot of people because it didn't have the best reception in Japan, but it sold much better here in the United States. Keep in mind, NPD is all about the United States in this case. And Injustice 2 is right below it, which is great for Injustice 2 because that means it had a very strong second month. May was good for it, and apparently June was good for it. Keep in mind, the PS4, while it is number 1, had some good sales going on. They introduced the gold 1 terabyte model that people flocked to when they had that sale going on for all their games as well. But going down from their list, this is where it gets interesting, and it seemed to surprise a lot of people. Grand Theft Auto 5 came in at number 3. And again, it surprised a lot of people, but whenever the PS4 seems to sell well, Grand Theft Auto 5 sells well too. It seems like people who buy the PS4 just buy Grand Theft Auto 5 with it. So that makes a lot of sense to me when I saw it. This is definitely going to hit the GTA 5 100 million units sold probably within the next 8-9 months at this rate. So that's going to be a massive seller, and it's going to go down in history as probably one of the better selling games ever. Right there at number 4 is Crash Bandicoot. Keep in mind, Crash Bandicoot at number 4 is very impressive because MPD goes by revenue. It's not by how many games sell. It's how much money comes in. Crash was kind of handicapped at that point at $40, whereas the other ones were $60. So it didn't have the full MSRP that the others have, but it still came in at number 4. Right below that is ARMS. Number 5, Nintendo came out and told us that it sold 256,000 physically plus digitally, so it did well there in the MPDs. ARMS being a new IP to a limited audience, because right now the Switch is limited in the United States. There's not as many out there as Nintendo would like. Like if ARMS released, let's say 2 years later, so 2 years from today, it probably would have sold way more. There's just not that many people to sell to right now. 6 and 7 are actually both Nintendo games as well, with Breath of the Wild at 6 and Mario Kart 8 at number 7. Interesting. Down from there, 8 was Overwatch, 9, NBA 2K17, and Horizon Zero Dawn still made it into the top 10. And I just made mention of this, but the PS4 was the number 1 selling system. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone here. The Switch has been badly supply constrained. The Xbox One is kind of in limbo because everyone's looking forward to the Xbox One X that are, I guess, hardcore gamers. The Xbox One will sell better at Christmas time when they have all these crazy price drops pretty much everywhere, because let's be realistic, the Xbox One is probably going to be $200 this Christmas with a $500 Xbox One X on shelves. It's going to sell well, the Xbox One will. And at this point, the Switch will not do well until they get more systems out. So maybe then, at that point, with Splatoon 2 and some other games, Christmas time, I think, is when we will see the Switch really start to come out as a big seller, but it's going to be whenever Nintendo can get these systems out. And we've talked about how the mobile market is super, super profitable for some of these companies. Well, we got some financial information for Fire Emblem Heroes. Remember that game? I think a lot of people seem to forget about it after it launched. It had some lukewarm reviews, and people started to realize it was going to drain a lot of your money, and it looks like it does, because they've actually managed to make over $100 million on about 11 million downloads. So it was reported that in 6 months, this game has made $115 million. Not only that, 11.7 million downloads, with $500,000 being just brought in with this app every day now, which is crazy because these mobile apps don't cost that much to make, but it has that kind of that addictive factor to it where you're trying to summon or bring new people in for your armies, and it's kind of a roulette system. So you're spending money, you're getting chances to get new people, you don't get new people, well, I'll put more money in to get them. And that's how it works. And I think a lot of companies are starting to see this because we're seeing so many mobile games come out, and so many people get frustrated at the cash shop or the pay to win style. But it works. It's interesting that mobile is so profitable for these companies because while I'm sure they love to make these big AAA games and show, wow, we can make awesome games, I feel like most of these companies are looking at like, that's where the money is. We need to release a mobile game. And in our last bit of news, it looks like Pokemon Go is finally going to be releasing those ever sought after legendary Pokemon to the public. And this is just ahead of the Pokemon Go Fest. So what's going to happen is this Saturday, trainers are going to have a chance to kind of group together there and attempt to work together and release legendaries to the world. And this is an excerpt that they released explaining what's going to happen. It says this: on July 22nd, thousands of trainers in Grant Park for Pokemon Go Fest and the millions of others around the world will be working together to unlock in-game bonuses for the entire Pokemon Go community. If they manage to catch enough Pokemon during the Pokemon Go Fest challenge windows, the first legendary Pokemon will be revealed in Grant Park. If the trainers in Chicago succeed in defeating the legendary Pokemon, that Pokemon will start appearing in raid battles around the world after Pokemon Go Fest. So we have no idea which legendary is going to be released. It could be any of them. It could be Zapdos. It could be Mewtwo. It could be any of them at this point, right? And now it's up to them in Chicago. If you're a Pokemon Go fan, you really need to be hoping that they are able to pull this one off after everyone around the world meets the requirements along with them, because it's going to be up to them to release legendaries around the world. I love this idea, by the way, from the Pokemon Go, really the creators, to do this. This is what I've been waiting for Pokemon Go to be, something where everyone can work together and reach a common goal like this. Because remember when we first saw the trailer for it, that's what it looked like was happening. They were working together to fight Mewtwo, and I assume collect him or capture him or release him to the world. This is awesome. I love the idea of this event. It's weird that it took an entire convention or a festival to make this happen. This is something that should have been happening a while ago, because now everyone's going to work together for a common goal to release the first legendary to the world. Great idea. I can't wait to see which legendary they picked. And that's it for Newswave today, guys. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me think about any of the stuff we talked about today, whether it is that Nintendo 64 Classic. Are you excited for the possibility of it? Do you think that the trademarks are just there for them to cover their bases? Or do you think maybe it's pointing at Virtual Console? I'm very curious on your thoughts on that. And if you are playing Pokemon Go, are you excited that we finally get one of the rumored legendaries to be released? It's up to them in Chicago, so hopefully it works out. Are you going to the festival? I'm curious on that as well. You'll have to let us know how it goes afterwards. Hopefully we get that legendary Pokemon released. I think it will get a lot of people back into the game, because this is something that really all the players have been waiting for. Something they can work together on a grand scale like that and bring something that they've all wanted, a legendary Pokemon, to life. That's it for now, guys. I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.